one, live.
Well, welcome everybody, and we'll be having a quick word of prayer here, and then we'll remain standing for our pledge. Father, I thank you for the privilege to meet together, and God, I just pray you just give us wisdom tonight. Thank you for Keith and Wes coming. And Lord, I just pray that everything we do and say, that you would be honored. And Lord, I pray that we would have the influence, we'd be the salt and the light that you want us to be. Pray your blessings now. Pray the Holy Spirit would be our teacher. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Jim, all yours.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Pastor. Not a better way to start the evening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am privileged enough, although my mom likes to use a different word, to be able to speak to you today. She says to me often when she sees things on Facebook, she says, "Why do you have to be so outspoken?" And I share with her, I say, "Mom, I'm not outspoken just because I'm speaking out." Those are two complete different meanings to those words. And then I think it's only fair that I answer her, "Mom, I'm speaking out because you didn't." And that's really where we are, because this didn't start last year, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. I remember, I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, I remember my mom standing up at what was called a PTA meeting. Anybody remember those?
Yeah, right.
Parent-Teacher Association, which is crazy, because we're not allowed to have an association today where parents and teachers can work together. But I remember my mom standing up at a PTA meeting, and some woman in the back stood up and said, "Why are you talking, you outsider?" Because we had just moved from California to Minnesota. So she wasn't allowed to talk, and I think, unfortunately, that really stunted her from speaking up or speaking out about things that she saw that was wrong. My father, on the other hand, was a little bit different. He always told me, he said, "Keith, if you, actually, usually what he said was duck, because there was a tool or something flying, and realized he was a little too close. But he said, if you are ever going to tell somebody that something's wrong or something's broken or something doesn't work or this isn't right, you had better not open your mouth if you don't have a suggestion on how to fix it." Now, I will be honest, I did not learn an awful lot from my father, except how to duck. But that's because I didn't want to learn. I wasn't open to his teachings. I learned an awful lot once I became 28, because suddenly he got really smart. He wasn't nearly as old-fashioned, and things that he was saying started making sense in his older age, if you know where I'm getting at. So what I'd like to do tonight, I travel all over the state. I'm the National Action Task Force investigator here in Minnesota, and now also Iowa and South Dakota, and the lead investigator in those states, and then I am their state coordinator, which just tries to get together not only volunteers in the NATF, but also get speaking engagements. And I ran into something a year ago, or a year and a half ago, called a rally. And I thought a rally was a car race, so I was in. And I went to St. Paul, and I went to a rally, and it was more flags than I'd ever seen in any parade, and true brothers and sisters that have become dear friends of mine. But in doing that, I got dialed into, why won't our school boards listen to us? Why does our city council sit there with this blank stare during open forum, which isn't very open, and not answer a question at all in any city council or school board meeting that I've been to? So I started doing a little research, because that's actually my real background as an investigator. And tonight we found some answers that we're going to share with you. Some of them may be new answers to you, some of them may not. But here's what's important to understand. Everything that we do, and I have 4 or 5 different presentations that we do, everything we do is a work in progress. There is no final answer, and here's why. We keep moving the goalposts, don't we? Mm-hmm. Just like that itchy ouchy guy, we continually move what the end game or the end goal is. So we have to continually adjust not only our presentations, but also our investigations. So we'll get to the next slide, and I will try to move through these fairly quickly. I know we're getting a little late to start. Again, that is I. If you go back, yeah, okay. We're going to do that really quick because it's a very sensitive arrow. There we are. All right, we'll just start there.
There we go.
That works, okay? All right, so can we get to the next one or no? There was a little warning about the FBI warning. If you saw that flash by, I'll just tell you real quickly. This isn't all copywritten, but there's a reason it's up there. It is not the FBI that you think of. My warning is from the Federal Bureau of Insurrection. But it does ask you to not copy and paste and everything, because what we've done is my slides have gone through the legal team at the NATF, and what I learned is when I give handouts or when I email somebody my slideshow, they can change one word and it completely changes the legal meaning of something. So that little warning is really just to protect me, to help protect you, that everything's been reviewed and that we actually quote actual sources. We don't copy and paste. Actually, we do copy and paste so that we have word for word off where we're getting our information. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this because it's just not working for me. Why are we here? Well, first and foremost, we've already identified, hey, we have a little problem here, don't we? And it's not just our school boards, and it's not just our city councils, or our county boards, or even our political parties, but I'm guessing that you've been blocked from getting some of the answers that you've requested, no matter who that was from.
That's right.
All right, and we identify, this is the most important to me in the entire show, we identify that this is a spiritual battle, but it's being fought in the physical realm. Now, many people, they want to fight the physical battle, and then they want to go home and ask God for forgiveness for what they did. That's a little bit backwards, isn't it? Before we get started, we must understand that God, if God is not in fact behind this, behind the activity that we're doing, behind the actions that we're taking, if he's not behind it, and we don't do it his way, it will not be successful. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's an easy lesson for me, because I've been here spiritually and I've been here spiritually. And I have these ebbs and flows. I'm not the most consistent Christian, but that makes me a really consistent human being, does it not? Mm-hmm. So I am with Operation Get Involved. That's a Facebook group that we started a while ago, my assistant Tammy and I. And really, that's what it's all about, is that if we don't get involved, and I'm going to talk about that tonight. I know people that are sitting here, people that are watching, you're all involved because you show up, you hit play, you attend. That's not what I'm talking about when I say Operation Get Involved. Please note as well, I like to see the cardboard cutouts that I see in some of the halls about Donald J. Trump. In my opinion, one of the best presidents. However, he is not our savior. Okay? Whether you like it or not, quit waiting for somebody else to be your savior. Because guess what? I am not the savior of the school board problem. I am not the savior of the PTA or the parent group problem. I'm not the savior. I can't save myself. But we have a habit of putting people up on a pedestal, and Pastor, you can relate to this. Congregations even put their pastors up on a pedestal. I'm going to tell you why that's a mistake. He was a man before he was a pastor, and men fail. And eventually, we're going to say or do something that you don't agree with, but because you put us up here, now you're going to let that slight your Christian walk. Okay? So it's the same way with what I'm telling you. Don't put me up on a pedestal. I'm no better or no different than any of you. I might have a few different skill sets. Some of them I've honed in. Some of them are a little bit wild. But it is up to you. It's up to God and your connection with him, but it's up to you to be the savior of what's going on that you don't like in the area. And if you don't get involved, we can't do that. All right, next slide, please. These are just some ways to reach me. Some of you know me on Facebook as 507. It's kind of spelt out a little funny because I get blocked once in a while. I have to create new profiles. But most of my social media is just the numbers, 507 Patriot MN like Minnesota. We'll go to the next slide because I'm really not here to tout about me, but when I do some of them, everybody wants to know how to reach me. The most important thing, and sometimes that I get so angry and upset with what's going on, I have to remind myself, this is the goal. Affect change. That's what we're all complaining about. Nothing's changing, nothing's happening. Some of us quit going to the school board meetings or the city councils because we went for 9 months and nothing changed, right? Okay, so that's what we're here for. We're here to teach you how to implement change. We're not here to save the world. I'm not here to get all the school board members to resign. We'll talk about that. We'll just do it right now. What happens when a school board member or a city council member resigns midterm? Does anybody know?
They get to choose a new one.
Exactly, no. The special election is the people that sit on the board get to choose who's replaced. Who are they going to put on there? Somebody that's like-minded, right? That's what we're all trying to do, right? Get an election where like-minded people are with us. Well, they get an advantage because they don't have to do a special election. So before you all go off thinking you're trying to get your school board to resign before the next election, or your city council, or your county board, Think about that. There is no special election for the most part. All right, next slide. We'll just skip that. We have put a lot of work into the research that you're about to see, and what I'm going to talk about tonight are specific steps that you can take about your school board. Now, most people, and again, I'm going to refer to school board tonight, I just use that as a verbiage. It can be the city council, the county board, whoever you're dealing with. And I gather a lot of information through public data requests. We'll get into that a little bit, but here are some important steps. The first one is, to me, most important is 1 Corinthians 14:40. Let all things be done decently in order. You know what I learned? I can stand up at a school board meeting and I can talk like this, and sometimes I get their attention. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have to turn it up a notch. If you've seen any of those on YouTube or Facebook, I see Wes laughing, so I know he's seen a few of them. All right, but you still have to be decent and in order. You can't be cussing and swearing and everything. And I know the school boards are saying, "Whoa, you know, your children are watching you." And I love when they say that to me, especially if there's a heated person in the audience, an open forum, and they're getting loud, right? And maybe the language is a little bit colorful, and the school board, "Your children are watching this video. They're learning from you." And I turn around and say, "Children have been watching the video for 9 months and learned from you." And I don't like what they're learning, right? When you have a school board member that will walk out of a meeting because they're in disagreement with something that somebody said, or they don't like being called on the carpet by name or by their position because of action they've taken, that's teaching our children to not deal with conflict. That's teaching our children that there shouldn't be two-way dialogue. It's kind of like an open forum that's not open, huh? Right? So do things decent in order. All right, another mistake I'm seeing, or I shouldn't say a mistake, but a minor correction for you. I see a lot of people trying to do a FOIA request. FOIA is not F-O-Y-I, by the way. It's F-O-I-A, and it is Freedom of Information Act. That has to do with the federal government. What happened in Minnesota is we decided we should create another law because we don't have enough of them here, right? Folks, if we just abide by the 10 we were given by God, we wouldn't need the 200 extra new laws a year. Eric Mortensen, you can use that one. So in Minnesota, we use a Freedom of Information Act that's differently. It's called the Public Data Request. It's under State Chapter 13. And it is official. There's actually some samples that you can use right from the state. But what it is, it's the information sheet that you address to somebody saying, "Hey, I would like to know this." How many times have we been in front of a school board or someone who would say, "I'd like to know this," and they're like, "Open forum is not for asking or answering questions," right? It's like a robot. Well, the Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA, if you're dealing with federal government, or our state statute, Chapter 13, is a wonderful tool. It is so wonderful that I almost use it every day. Now, I don't barrage people with it, but there's a method and a time for that as well. What it is just a written request that says, "Hey, I would like this free, allowable by law, public information that you have to be disclosed to me." Now, there's some caveats to that. There are some things that are not disclosable to us. For example, if a teacher was disciplined, that's not information that we usually have access to. Here are some things we're doing wrong in our public data requests. We're giving them way too much time to answer. When you give somebody 30 days to answer a simple FOIA or data request, you're already 30 days behind in getting your answers. So here's my recommendations: 10 to 15 days max. What types of information can you ask for? Anything that's public. Now, there is some people that say make your data request really, really broad, or make it really, really specific. Both have a purpose. A very broad data request might accidentally get you information that you didn't know existed. And sometimes it's information where the little light goes on in your investigative head, going ding, 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 ding. Wow, I need to follow that up. If you make it too specific, sometimes you miss those little gold nuggets of being too broad. Sometimes if it's too broad, it becomes too much of a large data request, and then they want to start charging you, which they do have the legal right to do if they can prove that it took an absorbent amount of time and resources for them to gather your data request. So if you want to know 25 or 30 things about the school board meeting, don't ask it all in one data request, because you're going to accidentally put yourself in a position where they're going to want a lot of money from you. By the way, the maximum they can charge you per copy by law is 25 cents. I've seen school boards send letters saying, well, it's $2 a page to copy it. No, it's not. 25 cents a copy. And you can go in and view it, or photograph it, or record it yourself absolutely free. They cannot charge you for that. All right, moving on. Organize your facts with footnotes and research and addendums in chronological order. This is going to be important when we talk about the notice and demand, or the notice of wrongdoing, which is where we're heading tonight. Preparing a general notice of wrongdoing and demand for redress of grievances. Folks, that is a constitutional right. That is enshrined in our founding fathers' documents. You have a right to a redress of grievance, which means if we have a difference, okay, if you've done something wrong to me and I can show you that you've done something wrong, you have to fix it. We have to come to an agreement. Now, I believe biblically there are 3 steps in that. First is I go to you one-on-one, man on man, man on woman, and say, hey, I'm upset that your dog keeps coming on my lawn to do his business and you don't clean it up. Okay? I'm addressing the wrong duty. And I would like you to come over and clean it up. And then it happens again 2 weeks from now, and they don't clean it up, and you say, hey, I came to you last week, I know you came to my yard, I know you cleaned up that one time, but now your dog's been here for 2 weeks and you haven't cleaned up once. Okay? So because you haven't done that, here's what I want to have happen. That's you're addressing it. You're giving your demand in the notice and demand part of a redress of grievances. And then if they don't do it, of course, you have the right to take other actions. So don't get into all these little tiny words here, because believe it or not, I was nice enough to take them and make them bigger on the next slide. This particular template, by the way, is for notice of wrongdoing and demand for being forced to wear a mask. Because that's where we were when we started these slideshows. That was the big thing, okay? Next slide, please. Specify how much time they have in your response. This is in the notice and demand. That's not a public data request. In your notice and demand, how much time do they have respond to you? I give them 15 days. If they do not give you a response, they do what's called acquiesce, which is to lose by default. Now, if you've done 2 or 3 data requests, by the way, notice this next line because it's true in there too. If you've done 2 or 3 data requests, or you've given them 15 days and you gave them a 5-day warning and a 5-day follow-up, and they still haven't answered you, folks, that is called willful violation of a state statute. In the Minnesota state statute on a public data request, if you have willful disregard for the law, it's right in the statute that says, I can demand your termination. So I see some head shaking. Some people didn't know that. That's something we should be using if we have a particular board or government entity or body that's refusing to answer us. All right, serving your personal notice of desire to settle a personal matter, again with an affidavit. Everything I do has an affidavit of service to it. Whether I mail it by U.S. mail or certified mail, whether I use a process server or a friend or the sheriff to serve those papers, or my favorite, which is called Firm Book. I'll share that with that about a little bit later, but Firm Book is a U.S. Postal Service form that you go in front of the postal inspector. Do not seal your envelope. You show them what it is that you're about to send or serve by mail. And let's say it's a notice of demand of Lewiston Altura High School. All right, the postmaster looks at that. You put it all in an envelope. You seal it. You hand it to the postmaster. They put their signature on the Firm Book form. And that has more weight in a court of law because that's a postal inspector's sworn affidavit that they saw what was mailed in there. It's better than the green return receipt certified mail, and it's not $7.50, it's $1. So we'll get into that so you can use that. All right, serve a late notice if there's a late notice with instructions on how to pay. Again, I'm talking about the wrongful notice and demand. We'll get to in the next couple of slides here. All right, next slide, please. In the notice and demand, there should be a financial tie-in. Why? Well, unfortunately, it's usually how we get people's attention, isn't it? Now, like I said, be sure your steps are decent in order, but the real thing that we're trying to do is affect change. Make some change happen. Make our school board listen, make our county board listen, make our school board listen. Make them change their policies or the direction and the ways they go. With what I'm about to show you, however, we have a really interesting part of it. We pierce the veil of protection because I'm not going after you, school board, or you city council, or you county board with your 12 members. I'm doing my notice of wrongful doing and demand to an individual that happens to be a man or a woman, a taxpayer, maybe a father or a grandparent or a mother, who sometimes acts in the capacity of a school board member. In writing it that way and doing it that way and not naming the whole school board, I'm dealing with each individual, and therefore I pierce the veil of protection. If you know anything about corporate law, why people are incorporated or limited liability corporation or S Corp or C Corp, it's to protect themselves from any liability should they be sued. Well, the school boards are protected too, very well, statutorily and insurance-wise. But doing things the way we do them, we pierce that veil because it's the individual that did the wrongdoing that I need to address. If each individual voted to then each individual is responsible. You follow me? All right. So, there are ways to collect. You can do a summary judgment in your own court. That's a whole other chapter I'm not getting into today, but it is fun. You probably didn't know this, but you have your own court and courtroom available to you. You can do a summary judgment in county court or small claims court. Again, that's if you're going after financial change. By the way, since it's your document in your court, guess who the lead negotiator is when it comes to settlement? Who has the power? You. It's your case. You filed it. Everything we're doing is actually to avoid a court of law because the way we lay it out, they can't possibly argue with it. And if they can't argue and there's no claim of argument, there's no need for the courts. All right, next slide, please. All right, I'm going to share this one with you. This is actually, oh look, I I on purpose listed the school board where this sign is displayed outside their school board meetings. Take a look at this, folks. Do you see anything wrong with this? I'm going to step out over here. Hopefully I'm still in the frame, but no place, no placards, no flyers, no signs, no posters shall be brought into the meeting room. Distribution of such in the meeting room is also not permitted.
That's your freedom of home.
Thank you very much. Someone's paying attention. Anybody in this room ever heard of free speech or free expression? Freedom of expression, right? Upheld by not only the Minnesota Supreme Court, but also the federal Supreme Court. And yet the people that teach my children in this school board, look what they're trying to teach. That they don't have to abide by the Constitution, or the Bill of Rights, or the preamble, or anything else. Or state statute, by the way, or the Supreme Court. Interestingly enough, that exact same school board, Toby, the chairman there, just last week in a meeting, somebody held up a sign in the back of the room, and the sign said, constitutional violation. And they held it up when he violated something in the Constitution. And he says, put that sign down. We don't allow signs here. Those are a distraction. And she said, and that's a constitutional violation, and so is what you just did, which is why I held up the sign. By the way, she's in the very back row. It would not have been a distraction had he not distracted the whole audience with it. I thought it was a very polite, subtle reminder to him. He took it the opposite direction, Toby did. And then he says this, ooh, I better not violate the Constitution, mocking her. Mocking our constitutions. Folks, we have a problem. We used to call these folks our Board of Education. If that's who's educating my children or my grandchildren, you better believe I'm going to be at the front of this parade. All right, again, I got to step around because it's just at an angle. I can't read the whole thing, but all attendees are required to conduct themselves in a courteous and respectful manner and shall not scream, yell, or use foul language. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I've been in 23 different school board meetings so far. I have at least 19 scheduled over the next several Mondays. Do you know who is usually screaming and using foul language? It's the school board members. They're so fed up and don't want to hear us that they're the ones doing this. The public is to refrain from private conversations, comments, applause, audible responses, or other demonstrations which disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the proceedings of the school board. Shh. Like little Lisa Library got out and they put her on the school board, right? Remember that lady in the library when we were all growing up? Books. Boop, boop, boop. All right. While we can't have a private conversation, guess what they do during public forum?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Do they not?
Yes.
Okay, so we're all in agreement there? Say amen, even if it hurts you, I know. All right. Only time that public comment is allowed is during the public comment period. Could you cite the statutory reference that gave you the authority to make that a rule? That's a very good line, by the way. You should memorize that. Can you please state the statutory authority that gave you the permission to make that rule? Because if it's not backed by a statute, they can't do it. All right. The time limit for each of this just happens to be in this school district. You get 3 whole minutes limited to items on the agenda. By the way, that's also a violation of your free speech rights and freedom of expression. You can talk about anything you want. Do not let them do that to you. It does not have to be on the agenda. Okay? Now, some people say, well, how do you get on the agenda? Oh, let's play that game, because Keith has been down that road more than once. Just go to their website, click School District, scroll down About Us and when our meetings are, and click the button saying Submit Topic for the Agenda. It's not there. Why isn't it there? Because they don't want to add anything that you want to do to the agenda, because then, heaven forbid, we'd have to have open dialogue about it. And they're teaching our children.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 3 minutes is wonderful too. Public comment is 15 whole minutes. How many 3-minute sessions go into 15? Anybody? 15 divided by 3?
2.
You must be from Rochester. No, that's one of the schools that actually has a timer, visible at least, so you know that you got your 3 minutes, right? I've been to some schools where they have this little slider on the laptop that goes ding when your 3 minutes are up. But if they like you, it could be 4 minutes or 5 minutes. If they don't like you, all they do is take their finger, and 45 seconds into your speech, they go ding. Sorry, sir, your time is up. Do you think video lies? Because I'm going to go back and play it, and it doesn't feel like that was 3 minutes to me. I'm sorry, Brainerd, did I call you out? Oh, anything that violates the above ground rules, you may be removed, right? But hey, I got a great idea. Let's have a public meeting in a public building, open to the public, and then tell you you can't be here because you didn't abide by our rules. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe there should be rules. I really, truly do. Robert's Rules of Order is a good friend of mine because of the 4-H upbringing that I have. I know how to conduct a meeting. But it's not like this. Okay? Let's get the sheriff and we'll trespass him. That's my favorite. By the way, if any out there in listening to this video have been trespassed by a school board or by the sheriff or by the police department at a school board meeting, will you please call me? You are rich and don't even know it yet. It is far better than Mystic Lake. Not that I have anything against Mystic Lake or any other casinos. The payoff is so much better. All right, next slide. We should hang here for a while, just zoom in and make sure the school board sees this. Freedom of speech is a principle that supports the freedom of an individual or a community to articulate their opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation, censorship, or legal sanction. The right to freedom of expression has been recognized as a human right in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international rights laws by the United Nations. Let's just park there for a while. Again, if you have been removed for speaking up at a school board meeting, please contact me. All right, next slide. Now I am going to have to move, and I hope you don't mind staring at a podium instead of the back of my head. This is the meat and potatoes of tonight's meeting. Notice of wrongdoing and demand for redress, because that's really what we're here for. How can we get our school board or our city council's attention? Well, you do it with this document, which is actually only 4 or 5 pages. It's broken down to a little bit more than that, just so I can enlarge it for you on the screen. Something that is critical and important in here, you are not a person. By law, a person can be a corporation or a group. You are you. You are a man or woman. Hereinafter referenced as the claimant in this action. If you notice, this is typed in very legalese format for a reason. It's not that we want to go to court. It's that if we do end up in court, we want to win. Does that make sense? I hereby notify you, name of the wrongdoer, in his or her capacity, acting in the agency of. So there you would put your local school district, right? I'm not going to read all the way through this, but basically what we're doing is we're identifying he or she. Yep, I like pronouns. We're identifying the wrongdoer, okay? And we're going to offer them an opportunity to dispute any of the facts or assert any law that would avoid liability as charged, or dispute the value of the damages as noticed herein. Further notice that he or she, and then how many days you have from the date of receipt of the service to correct the problem or respond. Next slide, please. After all, when they give homework assignments, they give a deadline. Why shouldn't we? In absence of a dispute or assertion of claim, in avoidance of the liability as charged, what this is basically saying is, listen, if you don't respond in writing to every single one of my bullet points of what you've done wrong as the wrongdoer, then you acquiesce, you admit guilt or fault because you didn't respond. Is that a beautiful thing? I don't have to try this all out in court. I'm going to give you 15 days, and if you just want to blow me off and think that this doesn't apply to you, thank you very much, I just won. And winning has all kinds of victory and things to it. All right, next slide, please. Again, I'm not going to read word for word. I have all this in the presentation. I have it in emails for you as well available. Upon reasonable belief, the wrongdoer is not licensed to practice medicine in Minnesota. The wrongdoer made no claims of having any medical knowledge whatsoever, and the claimant gave notice to the wrongdoer that they do not consent to the wearing of the face diaper. Wrongdoer made assertions that he or she could interfere with the liberty and freedom of the medical choice of the claimant in conspiracy with other unknown people as a matter of policy. Right? Because they made this policy. How about a medical device? Anybody know what that is? It's any article or healthcare product intended for use in the diagnosis and disease of other conditions, or for the use in the case of treatment and prevention of disease. Does that sound like a mask?
No.
I've got a really stupid question for us. Okay, there are no stupid questions. Where are the red biohazard bags in every school to discard these masks? Now, folks, I'll tell you, I have 16 years in fire and rescue. If these masks are what they are, if COVID is what it is, if we're not depositing these masks in a red biohazard bag, we are poisoning those very people that dump that garbage. So I can't wait for the janitor and cleaners union to go after the school board because we didn't provide them with the right PPE and we didn't contain these infectious, disease-filled cloth masks, right? All right, next slide. That's a whole new lawsuit for me. I got to get one on. What duty do you have? Well, as the wrongdoer, you have a duty under common law to not commit a trespass against another man or woman. I want to address that. What is common law?
God's law.
God's law. Do you know that every law we have came from God's law originally, or common law, or nature's law, as they call it? I can prove that. There's 10 of them in a tablet. There were 15. Somebody dropped. No, I'm kidding. If we would only abide by the 10 God's laws that were created, you know, we really don't need the rest of the laws. But the first cause of action was an intentional trespass on me against the wrongdoer for interference with the liberty and medical choice of the claimant in his or her decision to not wear a face mask. All right, we're going to just skip to the next slide. You guys, these are so basically easy. We've been making this way too hard. Demand for redress. This is where the fun comes in. Because of the truthfulness of the foregoing cause of action and the facts in support thereof, the claimant makes a demand for money damages against the wrongdoer as according to the following demands. Considering the trespass was intentional and a violation of constitutionally protected common law rights of personal liberty and medical choice, and in the wrongdoer's willful and contemptuous disregard, special or punitive damages in the amount of, can I get a drum roll for the band, please? $250,000. Now, folks, Congress established that law. Congress made that. That is U.S. code. It trumps Minnesota state statute. I love saying the word Trump. It trumps Minnesota state statute because it is U.S. code. Now, please understand that is not $250,000 against your local school board, city council, county board. Why? Well, I'm a taxpayer. And I don't want my school board to have to foot $250,000 or the legal fees to dispute it. So I didn't make this claim against the school board. Remember that? We're piercing that veil. We're making against every single individual. Because guess what? The school board attorney and the school board insurance policy doesn't cover individual wrongdoing. It covers individual wrongdoing to the school board or from the school board. I'm going after you as an individual, which you were before you were a school board member. And in fact, if I look at all the time in a day, you spend very, very little time as a school board member. All right, next slide, please. Oh, I love the second word. Conspire to injure any person in any state in the free exercise of enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him or her, secured to him by the Constitution or laws of the United States. They shall be fined as not to exceed $250,000 under 18 U.S. Code 241, 18 U.S. Code 3571, subdivision B. Alternative demand for redress. Hey, I like alternatives, don't you? I like choice. That's what an alternative is. I have an alternative for you. And it's not wear the mask or go home. Cease and desist with enforcement of wearing a face mask as a condition upon which to enter this public place and provide notice to the claimant of the cessation. In other words, you got to tell me that you're going to quit doing it. Now, folks, that is just one alternative demand for redress of grievances. Let's talk about some more that have been used in the state of Minnesota successfully. Does anybody know that there are over 9 superintendents of schools that have already resigned in the state of Minnesota this year?
They're not telling us that.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Now, Rochester's hasn't. They just gave him quite a lucrative salary.
And they had those 9, other 8 to select from, or whatever, 9 to, right?
Exactly. Yes, they had others they could have selected from. Not the people that live there, that send their kids there, right? Okay, here's an important part. I declare under penalty of perjury under law, all right? Now, here's why this is beautiful. Because not only are you testifying under penalty of perjury that you're being honest, right? Because decent and in order. We're not doing anything that's not honest. Our facts are facts. We'll have our documents laid out in this document to prove this. But here's the beauty of their response. You see, their response has this verification in the bottom of it too. It's required. They have to swear under penalty of perjury that they're being truthful. You know what? An attorney cannot swear under penalty of perjury on your behalf because they're not you. Are you following what I'm telling you really carefully here? Why do you think we go after the individual, man or woman, sometimes acting in the capacity of a city council member? Because your attorney can't answer. You have to answer to these things. We did one in another school board called Lewiston Altura. They're my favorite when I do this part, but they took every single process serving done on the school board members. They didn't even open them or look at them during the entire board meeting. By the way, they were served during open forum, on camera, live broadcast on Facebook. One person's talking during open forum and then says, oh, by the way, folks, my assistant's going to hand you a document, a little packet of papers for you here. He's going to approach the table. He's not here to hurt you. He's not going to say anything to you. He's just going to... And with each one, he went, you've been served. You've been served. You've been served. They didn't even open them. At the end of the meeting, the school superintendent, now catch that because she's not a school board member, the school superintendent gathered them all up. They spent 3 or 4 days on her desk. Finally, she sent them to an attorney. Folks, they only had 15 days to respond. Guess what? They already lost. And when they responded, they only answered 2 out of 18 bullet points. Because those were the only two they could answer for. Right? And the rest of the school board got sent new notices of the exact same paperwork to their homes by certified mail. Because we felt that perhaps it wasn't fair since they didn't open the package. And even though they had their 15 days, and that's all we were required to give them, we sent new notices at our expense, copied the 15, 20-page document, paid for the certified mail, sent them to their homes. You know that 4 of them didn't even sign the registered return mail, so it got returned. Folks, that's called victory. They acquiesce. They gave up the fight and admitted default by not answering, because that's how the document's laid out, and that is natural law, that's common law, that's God's law. They had an opportunity to answer and they chose not. So now we proceed with additional paperwork, sending them notices. What do we send them? Send them an invoice. Here's the $250,000 bill. Here's how you pay it. Here's where you mail it to. Here's what form we can take it in. By the way, don't use one of the GoFundMe pages. That's for my brothers in Canada in the trucking world. All right? Folks, there are things you can do. This mask mandate and Corona version 4.0, 5.0, 6.9, hey, but if I have $1.50, it's not going away. I can prove that to you in a couple of the next slides. I know from the Minnesota Department of Education and all the federal grants that they took, and I believe there's a couple people shaking their head because they already know what I'm going to say, this stuff is scheduled to go on and already paid for and approved through June of 2023. Did you hear me? This is not going away. The plandemic and scandemic runs all the way through June of 23, and that's just this round that's already bought and paid for. So Keith, why doesn't my school board listen to me? Can we go to the next slide? All right, true story. I've been an actual investigator for about 30 years. What I'm sharing with you is fully fact-checked with sources quoted so you can verify. The information is direct, and I am quoting from the Minnesota Department of Education's very own website and a few hidden back rooms. It isn't that hard, but it is time-consuming. Now, I'm going to tell you this, and this is for everybody listening online or in the audience. I need more investigators. Oh, Keith, I don't have the training, Guess what? You don't need any. You already are an investigator because you're sitting here. You've already determined there's something afoul, and it's not just flour from Disney. Something stinks. You already know that, and you've already tracked a few things that stink. So come alongside us and help us, because we need researchers, we need documenters, we need people to go search the internet or Google or whatever. Not DuckDuckGo, because they tell the truth more. All right, next slide, please. In just one of 3 federal government grants, just one, the U.S. government bribed our school districts with over $200 billion, that's billion with a B, like billions and billions, right?
Dr.
What do they have to do to get it? By the way, I have to thank Elena, because she's the one that turned me on to all this. What do they have to do to get it? They have to implement and stick to a plan for masking, social distancing, quarantining, and yes, vaccinating your children all the way to 3rd and 4th grade or 5 years of age. Folks, this is the money slide. This is why your school board will not listen to you or will not respond to you. They got caught, excuse me, Pastor, they got caught with their pants down. They took billions and billions of dollars from the federal government. They signed a contract in the way of a grant, and they are locked in. That's not my problem. That's theirs. And it's time they own it. Now, personally, I've been in contract law and contract disputes a few times. Hey, this isn't working out for me, so I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you all the unused money. I'm going to give it back to you with a sincere apology. I don't really know what I'm going to do with what we've already spent. Maybe we can work something out. Maybe we can't. Maybe it goes to court. Maybe it doesn't. But I screwed up. And I'm sorry. And what would really make me happy is if just one school board member in the state of Minnesota had the cojones to stand up and do that. Yeah, you may lose your seat on the school board, but I'm going to be honest with you, the Patriot movement, we would probably call you a hero and elect you to a higher position, because thank God finally somebody told the truth. Right? Next slide. The federal government has passed 3 major relief packages. Now, folks, words have meaning. And you better mean what you say, and you better say what you mean. Well, our school boards don't, and our city councils. What they do is they go by initials and acronyms. Do you know why? It's not to shorten the meeting notes, folks. It's to throw you off so you don't understand what they're saying and doing. Anybody ever hear the CARES Act? Well, the CARES Act actually has a name. Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, CARES, or the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, right? See the highlighted words or initials? Go Google that or DuckDuckGo it. Just type that in, CRRSA, and you will be shocked what you find. And keep clicking. By the end of it, you're an investigator. All right? Because this is literally all I had. I had a cover sheet from Elena from the Minnesota Department of Education that had these initials, and did I go to town? And I'm not done. Next slide, please. Somebody keep, oh, I got the clock up here. All right. I'm not going to read all these, but I'm going to tell you this. This is word for word verbatim. I didn't take a single word or punctuation out. This is right off the Minnesota Department of Education website, and it is long. I didn't include all the slides. But again, look at, here's a new 3, love those 3-letter agencies. That's how you start looking at things. Look at the billions, 150 billion in payments to state, local, and tribal governments. Love that one. Love that one. Now, folks, I grew up in a small southern Minnesota town called Morton, Minnesota, right outside of Redwood Falls. And we have what's called the Lower Sioux Agency there. Some of my best friends were Native Americans, truthfully. I almost want to name one because it's kind of a cute story. My best friend growing up was a 100% Sioux Indian named Christopher Columbus. Truth. I don't mind that we're giving money to tribal governments. But last time I checked, they surely aren't paying a whole lot of taxes. Right?
Right.
So do I at least as a human being, do I have the right to at least as a taxpayer to question that and say,
Mm-hmm.
Right? By the way, some of you are sitting here going, does any of this have to do with CRT?
Oh, yes.
Of course not. This is about COVID, right? Stay tuned, folks. All right, next slide, please.
Right.
Oh, what timing, Keith. Remember the question, is there proof that COVID-19 money goes to CRT-related issues, topics, or concerns? Well, look at this. Some of the requirements for getting money through some of these grants have to do, in fact, remember, this is word for word. How about gender? We need to support gender equality for all students who missed opportunities during the COVID-19 pandemic to have their learning needs met. Can somebody please explain to me how one gender or gender identity had any more or less missed opportunity than any other student? Did I miss something? I mean, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to school, true story, but I got this. How about we empower all students to critically examine gender bias and affirm students' sense of self-value or self and other value. Sorry about the screen there. Is CRT involved in COVID-19 money? Absolutely. I'll show you another thing. For those of you that are listening online or maybe reviewing this later on, if your school district hands out applications for food assistance, meal assistance, and you can't tell me I'm wrong in this because I have enough school paperwork that I've seen across the state. This year, they told everybody, even if you don't think you qualify, fill it out anyway. and some people that would never qualify for food assistance for their students. And I don't care whether you do or don't, or what the threshold is, fair and equal, I'm fine with that. I believe that good, solid meals are important as a part of education. You have to have nutrition and nourishment. But see, this year, that's one of the measuring tools of how much money your school district gets. One of the criteria is how many people are on assisted lunch programs in your school district. Well, the schools knew this when they applied for the grant before school started, so they sent out surveys and envelopes and information to everybody saying, apply, apply, the qualifications have changed. Bull squawk, your tax dollars are still paying for the lunches. Who do you think COVID-19 money comes from? The IRS sits in the basement and runs more off the mimeograph machine? That's not it, folks. It's not free. It's you and me. You and I. Okay, Morton? We paid for all of this. And we're going to continue to pay and continue to pay and continue to pay. And our grandchildren will be paying for what we've done in the last 2 years. Not only financially, mental health wise and everything else. Next slide. I'll get on the soapbox and stay on this one forever because I could. Cool, we snuck a blank one in there. This is where I take a sip of water and go to the next one. All right, we talked a little bit about Minnesota Chapter 13 public data requests. What I'm going to show you now is how to get the action and what the steps are for filling out this redress of grievance. Okay, so first thing you do, you get your public data requests. Folks, that's what I call information gathering. Some people call it evidence. You follow me? That's where you get your evidence. That's where they tell on themselves because they don't have a choice because it's the law. Then you fill out your notice and demand. You know, someone's been wrong. Wrongdoer notice and demand, redress of grievances. You either send it by registered mail or the firm book process that I talked about with all related affidavits. It gives you notice of what they've done wrong. You're seeking remedy. It lays out the fees and your demands. Let's talk about some of the demands. I demand a full-page ad in the local newspaper with all the city council signatures saying I screwed up by taking this money, by mandating masks in my public library, blah, 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 whatever it is, and I want your signatures on it in the paper for everybody to read. Sound reasonable to you? Sounds reasonable to me. And I'm the one making the claim, so I get to make the demand. Now, if they say, never going to happen, guess what? It's my claim. I have the right and ability to negotiate. Okay, well, if that's not going to happen, then how about this? Or how about this? Because I'm all right with negotiating. I like negotiating. Oh, you don't want to do that? Well, let's switch to something else. And I love to put them on the spot, because why can't you just ask them, okay, what do you think would be fair for you to do to give back to the community in admitting that you screwed up and that you've been lying to us all this time? And then shut up and wait for their answer. Because as soon as they talk, they just admitted to you that they did wrong and they knew it, right? 15 days to respond maximum. Okay? If no response, again, they acquiesce, they lose by default. Next slide, please. These are simple steps. Then you serve notice of a default with the invoice and give them 7 days to pay. What are they paying, Keith? I don't know. What'd you put in your demand? According to U.S. Code, $250,000. Wait till you see the interest. All right? Now you serve a late notice because they didn't pay that in 7 days with instructions again how to pay, and again an affidavit of service. All right? Then you serve notice of default and dishonor. What that means is you are deliberately not answering this and you are now in default. And folks, that holds up in court. There are quite a few fun little things you can do after this point. You can go to court. You can file what's called a less prudence claim with affidavits and record them in the county recorder's office. You know what that does? Well, at about midnight that night or midnight on Friday night at the latest, it's automatic. All that information is automatically uploaded, and it usually shows up in places like public notice sections in newspapers. And it goes to companies. Let me see if I got these names right, and if you guys have ever heard of any of them. TransUnion, Equifax. How do you like that cabin that you're trying to sell? Can't sell that with a lien, can you? Oh, you don't have $250,000? That's okay. How about that nice boat you just bought? I like the water. See, I'm the negotiator. I have the power. You have the power. It's we the people. We are the government, and we've got to stop rolling over and letting people... Let me just ask you, if tomorrow your school board came back out and said, hey, I'm sorry, we have to put the masks back on, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what Bradley Dean's going to do. No, you're not. 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 And I will personally I'll run a school bus if I have to go pick up parents. And we will be at the front of that school at 7:50 in the morning. No, you're not. And folks, until we do that, yes, they are. And I will mark my words. Today is 23rd or 24th of March, 2022. If you think COVID's over or masks aren't coming back under their direction, I'm telling you, no, they're not. I'm not telling you they won't try. I'm not telling you some of you won't cave in, but no, they're not. All right, next slide. All right, we can just skip that one real quick because we've already covered that. And I want to apologize. I have somebody running my slideshow with a very old computer today, and I did not bring my clicker to do this automatically, so I'm thankful for that somebody jumped in. Folks, the time is now. The time really is right now, and I hope you hear this slide. We've all been here for what? 13, 14, 18 months, 9 months going to school boards and city councils. We've all made these rallies and these pep fests and these plans and these protests, as peaceful as they've been. But without action, a plan of action is just another plan. We've got to put the pedal to the metal, the rubber to the road. I don't need you pushing me out front and making me a sacrificial lamb. I don't need you taking a Brian Brotner and Elena or even a Wes Lund and saying, hey, look at all this information I have for you. You should go scream at them. No, that is not what we need. Listen, I'm dumb enough. I'm going to volunteer to be in the front. I don't need your help. I don't need your help pushing me there. But I'll tell you what, I used to love a good old Western. And I was talking with a gentleman today, and this just came to me today. I don't need you behind me. I don't need me up here talking at the school board podium and have 45 of you or 50 or 60 of you behind me, or 100 or 140. I need you on my flank, my right and my left. I need it to be like the old Westerns when the cowboys looked up out of the valley up on the hill and all they saw was horses and feathers all the way around. And when, uh-oh, they brought an army and we're surrounded. Now, you don't all have to have skills, and yes, there's strength in numbers. You don't have to have the same skills I have, but you do all have skills. I know, because you were made by God, and He didn't leave you empty-handed. He brought you here for a reason. He gave you certain talents and skills that I don't have, but one of them is join the doggone army. Quit standing behind us. Quit making your neighbor do all the work. There's people out here fighting at these school boards and city councils who do not have children in public schools. Well, yeah, those are the rabble-rousers, and they should be there. They don't have a reason to be there. Listen, we all have a reason to be there. And if you're an employer, you definitely have a reason. Because these are the kids that are going to walk through your door in 6, 7, 8 years and want a job from you, or to be your manager, or to buy your business. And if they aren't educated and equipped and of sound mind and good mental health, we are in trouble, because you know what they'll do if they don't get that job? They'll become our next representative or senator. Whoa, now I got your attention, didn't I? Folks, you got to realize that there's more of you here tonight than at most of Biden's campaign stops. We have power. We have power and we don't realize it. We're not utilizing it. We're spinning our wheels because we're getting caught up in the physical battle, not the spiritual battle. We need to be in prayer about this. We need to pray and ask God, will you show me what you want of me in this fight? I will tell you, most armies are volunteer. Not everybody's called by God to answer God. Some volunteer, and God still uses them a lot. But we have got to saddle up. We've got to soldier up. We've got to put on the full armor of God. We've got to quit letting somebody else fight the battle for us, or be the, wow, Susie Q, she sure speaks up great at them meetings. I love her. She's so articulate. Where are you? Where are you, America? Where are you, Minnesota? This is not my battle. Next slide, please. That might be the last one. Oh, here's some actions you can do to help. Attend every meeting, not just one. Not just the one you think is important. I'll tell you the one that's most important is the one where nobody shows up and the school board or city council does exactly what they please. Because nobody's there to record it, document, or hold their feet to the fire, or say, I object. We have to have representation at every meeting. We have to record every meeting, whether it's Facebook Live or just recording or whatever, even an audio recording. And I'll just clear that up for some of the school boards that have a problem with that. Minnesota state statute says that as soon as one person, a party to a conversation, is aware of a recording, it's legal. I don't have to tell you. So, I'm going to speak at public forum because that's part of the conversation and now it's legal. Right? Mm-hmm. Broadcast every meeting. Folks, we got to tell people what's going on. Listen, I am one that says we're in trouble because not enough people are really alert to what's going on. And I'm going to tell you that I'm in agreement with you, but over the last several months, every single day I have at least one more coming to me going, all right, you weren't a conspiracy theorist. You're right. It's bad. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to believe, but I get it. Folks, if we got to win one soul a day to this fight, then one soul a day it is. Right? It's just the way it is. But we have to broadcast every meeting. We have to speak at every meeting. If you're an articulate speaker, then speak. If you're not, and you get all the butterflies, and you don't think you can put the words together, then maybe speaking at the forum isn't for you. And I'm not saying it isn't. Just trust me, I fumble a lot of words. But I am not afraid. What I don't fear is that I can go to my prayer closet, whether that's my car or in the bathroom, or 5 seconds before I get to that podium and just say, God, take it, because I don't have the words. Some of the best speeches I've heard at school board meetings were unprepared things from men and women that would never in a million years step in front of a microphone, because they spoke from their heart. It didn't have to be prepared. Here's another one. Go to your school district's website, copy their policies and procedures, print them out, put them in a 3-ring binder, and if they don't have them online, ask why. Why would you not? You are a public entity. Why would you not have your policies out there? To be audited, to be monitored, to be kept in check. You are a representative of me, the taxpayer. In fact, why not draft a resolution and hand it to them and just say, hey, these are the policies I'd like you to abide by. This is what I'd like you to change. Right? We didn't show the slide because it's on another part and the laptop's a little ancient. But remember that sign from Lewiston High School about what you can't do and can do? Mm-hmm. We did our own. I wish I had it with me. They haven't seen it yet. But when we go to the next school board meeting, we're taking that sign down. I want to tear it up and leave it at their feet, but I know for a fact they'd call that damage to their little piece of paper and property, and I'd go to jail for it because that's the way they are. So I won't tear it up, but I'm going to lay it at their feet like their little golden calf, and we're going to put up the new one, professionally printed on nice cardstock glossy paper, and it says things like this: you will protect the rights of every single human being in this room. The constitutional rights, the human rights, the civil rights, the statutory rights, and oh, by the way, the Student Handbook Bill of Rights as well, because there is something named that. And when they're shutting down parents or they're shutting down students, they're violating their own handbook that they wrote for the students. It says things like, you will not eject, remove, bar, or ban anyone from this public meeting in a public building, speaking in public forum without the right of due process. Amen? I'm done with this. Oh, and by the way, to you law enforcement folks, they're acting as agents for the school board. When there is no criminal complaint and you're trespassing somebody because, oh, they hurt someone's feelings about what they said, or they spoke a little bit longer than 3 minutes, you, sir, just elected to $250,000 by U.S. code, and I will name you also. You have no better protection than an individual who sometimes serves on a school board, because you are a man or a woman first, sometimes acting in the capacity of a deputy sheriff or a police officer. Mark my words. That's not a threat. I back the blue. I've been to several Back the Blue events, including emceeing them. But my attitude is changing a little bit. I want to back the blue that's constitutionally correct. The ones that aren't, I'm having a little bit of hard time standing on your left and right flank saying that I back and support you. Copy your policies and procedures. Learn them. It is okay to have a sign that says constitutional violation and hold it up every time they do that. It's okay to have a sign that says policy violation and hold it up because they wrote their own stinking policy books and they aren't abiding by them. Remember the ones like, how about the anti-bullying statute in the state of Minnesota? Doesn't the school board have to abide by that? It's their policy. But don't they bully and shame at a school board meeting or turn the volume down because they don't want to hear what you have to say in the microphone?
Yes.
I was at one where a woman literally said, I'm not talking to you guys because you don't listen anyway. I won't call her out by name, but I think she might be in the audience. It was the first time I'd ever seen her. And she turned around like this. And she talked to the parent group, like 100 of them. Well, why talk to the school board if they're all on their phones? Or she'd had enough. And then they tried to turn down her microphone. She's like, I don't need one. Kind of like me. She can be a little loud and proud. I think she got a standing ovation. In Brainerd, Minnesota, I committed the sin, Pastor. I went over the 3-minute mark. Lord, they got up and recessed the meeting and walked out before I was at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Tantrum, exactly. You know where they got that from? Some clown up here in St. Paul. Give me a second. He's got a new name. Timmy the Tyrant, the sandbox bully. That's where they got that behavior from. They threw a tantrum and walked out. So all I did is this. Your 3 minutes are up, sir. Yeah, I realize my 3 minutes are up. But they don't care because they're kind of interested in what I have to say like you should be. And I don't care either. Oh, I demand a recess. So they all got up and walked out. And I said, so anyway, what I was saying, you guys, is this. See, sometimes what you do at a Rochester school board meeting that you don't even know the effect you have, empowered and gave someone else the vision of, oh, you're going to turn my mic down or you're going to walk out and not hear me? It's okay. The parents need to hear that there's support. The parents need to know that there's one of us that will speak up, or 2 or 3, and they can bring their grievances to us, and we, in turn, can speak up for them. Amen? So no matter what you do, know this. Somebody's watching. Somebody's learning from you. You are empowering somebody else. So stand up. I want to thank you all. I want to end with this. Since you've been sitting for a little while, I was going to save this for another time, and it might be good tonight. Will you all just stand up for a second for me? Stretch your legs. Won't hurt. Just all across the room, if you'd all just stand up. Now, what I have in front of me is it's a Minnesota sample form. It is an official one that you can use. It's called the Oath of Office.
I want you to just play around for a little bit. This won't hurt. It won't cost you a thing. I'm not going to ask for a donation. But would you pretend with me that your left hand is on a Bible? Be careful where we're speaking tonight. Like that. Not the Quran, not a comic book that some of you clowns think things go on. Raise your right hand with me if you would. In the county that we are currently in, and I'm not going to name it just to protect the church I'm in, but I state your name. There you go. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of independent investigator in the state of Minnesota to the best of my judgment and ability. So help you God. You may be seated, ladies and gentlemen, by the power of the National Action Task Force. I've now just deputized each and every one of you and made you an independent investigator. Go forth and dig deep. Amen? Thank you so much.